One second, one second. Good morning.
Good morning.
You nearly forgot about us?
I didn't have a link, so I got one from Jake.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for joining us today because we really want to push so many applications for September intake for the medical law.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so can you tell me a little bit more about yourself? So you are a tutor at University of Law, yeah?
That's right. Absolutely. Yes, I've been a tutor here for a year and a half.
Okay, and what, like, why you are interested in law? Why did you start teaching exactly the area of law?
Right. Well, I've got a long history, but my area of maximum interest is medical law and ethics. And as a solicitor, I used to practice in the area of catastrophic head injury claims and also clinical negligence. And it was this that made me interested in looking at the research angles of this as well. I also have a background as a qualified nurse and a qualified midwife, and so this also sort of galvanized my interest in this particular area. But it's an area that I've been working in for the last 22 years, so it's quite some time.
So you started from being a nurse and then you moved to law, yeah?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
many years of education, I guess.
Yes, yes. It's quite interesting though. There are a lot of overlaps between the professions because, you know, you have clients in the same way. Well, you have patients with one, but clients in another. So there are a lot of synergies that can be really useful, really interesting.
Definitely, it was easier for you to sort the cases because of your knowledge from nursing side, medical side, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. At least you know about the terminology, so
Yeah.
that makes things much, much easier. Yes.
So can I ask you, because maybe we have some nurses who will be watching us and they want to start another degree. So you finished like a nursing degree and then you started the law from the beginning, or you did just a
No,
master in
no.
law?
No, I'm at risk of showing my great age here. I was practicing as a nurse and midwife for almost 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And yes, it was after that time that I wanted some new challenges, some new interests. So yes, that's my background. Yeah.
So, but did you do master in law or you started from the beginning LLB law?
Yeah, I actually did something called a law conversion course.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I did a PGDL in those days, so it was much quicker for me to do that. I'd already got a degree in nursing that I used as a sort of basis, and then I did the conversion course, which was great. It was super. And then I did a training contract, and then I qualified as a solicitor after doing my LPC.
So, how many years did you have to study law to become a lawyer, and how many years of practice?
Oh, well, I did a GDL in 1 year, PGDL in 1 year. Then I studied an LPC, which took 1 year. And then I had to do a 2 year training contract where I had 4 seats and I sat in 4 different areas of speciality. And that permitted me to qualify as a solicitor. And then I practiced as a solicitor for almost 3 years before I decided that I wanted to have a little look at academia about higher education. And I really enjoyed that. So I carried on in that area.
So, to become a teacher, did you have to make the that course, or you could start study straight away?
In order to go into higher education at that particular time, I was able to start as a part-time lecturer because I didn't want to give up my day job. I wanted to just try it out before I made a conversion. So I took some hourly paid work and I realized that I really enjoyed it. And then I wrote a couple of papers, and one was in the New Law Journal, a little article, and I really thought that was for me. So then I applied for jobs, and then I was taken on, and then shortly after that, I did an LLM. I didn't do it in medical law, I did it in business law.
Okay.
Um, but yeah.
I was studying international business law.
So you know all about it. Yeah, it's fascinating. It really is great. Yeah, yeah.
So, do you miss hospitals sometimes?
Not nowadays, the honest truth. Not nowadays. I'm glad I am where I am. But, yeah, I really respect all those hardworking health professionals. It can be really tough.
Definitely. And so, do you have any knowledge about the LLM, like in healthcare or mental health? Or
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I've been teaching on all 3 of the programs, well, all 2 of the programs. There's an LLM in, mental health law, and of course, there's the LLM in medical law and ethics. So I've been teaching on both of
so,
those.
what's the difference between them?
Right. So with medical law and ethics, it's a very broad church. Um, if a student wishes to follow this particular pathway, they have to try and accumulate, or they do have to accumulate 180 credits. And students will first of all study medical law and ethics, which is a 30 credit module. And during that module, you study 10 different topics. So it's a range of issues, all with a specific focus on medical law and ethics. And it's very much socio-legal, which means that it's broader than just law. You look at context as well. So, for example, excuse me, you look at things like, the NHS, private practice to some extent. You look at, the whole area, which makes it fascinating. It really does. Now, with mental health, once again, you have to study mental health as one of your topics if you wish to qualify with an LLM in mental health law. And once again, it's a whole range of issues. It includes something called voluntary and involuntary patients, compulsory treatment of some patients, but it also looks like some contextual factors. For example, we look at things like housing and the effect of poor housing on mental health. So these are subjects that can be studied by people that have a law background as well as people that have no law background whatsoever, which is great. So everybody starts off from a level playing field. You don't need to have a really in-depth knowledge of law, which is super.
But the plus point is that our students who didn't have an background of law,
Yes,
they have 2 3 months preparation of law because they need to know something. But I was
out.
always thinking that, for example, someone finished BA in psychology
Yes,
and they're going for LLM in mental health. So,
yes.
what kind of job they can do connected to psychology and law after they graduate?
Well, it's very open. There's no specific job, so I can't say, they would qualify as a psychologist with a specific interest in mental health law. It's not quite as simple as that. But after saying that, there are so many careers where this sort of wider appreciation of the legal environment or governance, for example, and policy can be so useful indeed. The thing that immediately comes to mind, of course, is, you know, if the person wants to go into higher education themselves, who wants to take it that way. But there's a whole range of specific areas that they could go into. With medical law and ethics, for example, it depends once again on the type of student. If you have a student who's possibly already a practicing barrister or a practicing solicitor, they might wish to use their LLM in order to advance their career. And it really can help in those areas. If you've got a healthcare professional, for example, some health professionals that I've taught in the past have wanted to sort of move their basic career. They don't want to change and become a lawyer like I did. They want to keep themselves as a nurse or as a doctor or whatever their background is, but they want to go into policy areas, for example, or maybe they want to go into governance, clinical governance, which is a really popular area to look at, or maybe they want to go into the healthcare regulatory bodies or the defense organizations, like, for example, the Protection Society or the Medical Defence Union. I've recently had a student, I wrote a reference for her because she was applying to the General Dental Council for a role. She's a dentist, but she wanted to take her career into that particular area. So yeah, so it's thinking outside the box a little bit to see where this knowledge might take you.
Even I decided to study international business law. I have my own company, and I will never go to work for someone, but I use
Yeah,
the knowledge for myself.
exactly.
So it's just I just save £600 on the solicitor advice, for example, sometimes.
So well worth it. So you've got a good return
Yeah.
on your money.
Yeah, but I think even people who like doctors, if they
Yeah.
will do some, it's good for them to know as well, because
Oh,
they
absolutely.
can
Yeah,
put themselves so many times in at risk. So
yeah.
studying additional 9 months, they can help them to avoid the some problems in the future, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the thing is, when you think, from my background as a healthcare professional, the way you look at things as a lawyer is quite different. And it's a really good learning skill, a life skill, to be able to look at things with that different perspective. So I would totally agree with you. Yeah, absolutely.
Or even psychologists who will finish LLM in healthcare, mental health, they can work in the council, for example,
Absolutely.
social
Yeah,
workers. Because
yeah,
always my students, they asking me, what can I do after this degree? Why I should add this LLM? So
yes,
during this podcast, I would like to give them as many ideas as we can to find a job after they finish only 9 months course, which is LLM.
yeah,
So mental health, I would say, even if someone was studying business and they want to work, I don't know, at the airports in immigration or something. So if, knowing the people when they're trying to sneak through the border, for example, uh, when you read their mind, I think it's helpful as well. I think in many ways people can use this degree. But
yeah.
before we finish our podcast, if you will have more ideas, they will come to your head, then just share it with me.
Yeah, I certainly will. Yeah, yeah. The other aspect that we do on the master's course, of course, is to write a dissertation. Now, this is a long piece of work. It's 15,000 words, but students choose an area that they wish to look at in great depth, but they get the support of experienced academics in order to do that. Now, that particular piece of work can also help with future career possibilities. For example, if you have somebody who wants to go into higher education, they maybe want to do some empirical work. Uh, they want to do some interviews or questionnaires, then we can support them to do that. If they have an idea from their previous knowledge that this is an area they really want to look into in great depth, once again, this might open other possibilities for future career. So it does give you additional skills as well, like legal research skills, which can be useful in a wide variety of circumstances. So I think the trick in the game is not to think that the LLM will equip me to do a certain job. It's much broader than that. Like you say with your company, it's given you additional skills that maybe you didn't think about right in the beginning when you started. But
Definitely.
it's yeah, yeah.
So I know how you assess students at University of Law, but I will ask you, how do you assess?
Yeah, yeah. Right. So there is an assessment regime that's built in through all of the different courses that we do. Some of the courses, I'll take for example on medical law and ethics. The main course is that of medical law and ethics. Now, that is assessed by an end of course examination. It's 3 hours, it's online, and you answer 3 questions from a choice of 5. So that gives you an opportunity. But that might make you think, oh my goodness, that sounds rather scary. But we also have an option to do a mock exam halfway through the course where your tutor can provide you with really supportive, formative feedback in order to make sure that your final exam is the best piece of work that you can do. Now, on healthcare regulation, which is one of our newest courses, very popular course, that is assessed by an end of course piece of coursework. That's 4,500 words. You have more or less about a month to put that together. So you have got some time. Most students really enjoy doing that because once again, they have an opportunity to really explore that area in great detail. But, all of the assessments are online. People don't have to come into, um, you know, an examination center or anything like that. Um, but yeah, and also the dissertation is a double weighted module, and that's where students can study, something that they really want to look into as well.
Um, I enjoyed my exams online, but to be
Yeah,
honest, when I was studying before international business and also
yeah.
LLB law, and
Oh
when
yeah,
I had to sit the exams on LLB law, going to
yeah,
the campus or to it's I like it more because I put more into like learning.
yeah.
Online is always kind of
Yes,
easier.
yes. Well, the other thing, which is interesting is if you have a student like yourself who prefers the discipline of going into a center, that is also a possibility.
Okay, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. So most students do prefer to be online in their bedroom or whatever they feel comfortable. But yes, of course, I totally get that. So yeah,
But when
yeah,
you
we
have the 3 hours
great.
and you have to write it down, then there is no option. You have to just
You
focus.
have to sit there,
Yeah,
focus.
no matter where you are, you have to do it.
Yeah,
Okay, so can you tell me a little bit about workshops? The workshops really prepare
yeah,
the students for the
yeah,
like real cases and how they
yeah.
can use it in the future at work.
Absolutely. So the main sort of teaching approach on the AML course, the LLM course, is by these workshops. Now, each course has 10 workshops. So this runs on a weekly basis. It's timetabled. So students are aware of when the workshop will be held. Now, the workshops, students are expected to do some pre-course, pre-workshop reading. They are told what the reading actually is. They have links to the library, so everything's online. You don't need to buy anything or do anything like that. And there will be specific questions that will form the focus of the online workshop. And these online workshops are interactive, they're synchronous environments, so everybody's talking together. These are really dynamic. This is my favorite part of teaching on these courses. They're absolutely great fun. We always have good fun doing them. Now, however, some students choose online learning because they have childcare commitments, maybe they're working full time, maybe they are across the world in New Zealand, for example. So for these students, attending physically at these, well, attending online at these workshops is not really possible. It doesn't matter. All of these workshops are recorded, and the recording at the end of the week is put on to the course so that all students can watch. And these are available right to the end. So even if students have actually taken part, they can still go over, watch the recording. So it can be very useful for the purposes of revision before the assessment. So that's the way we do it.
And to be honest, when I was studying my LLM online, sometimes when I joined recorded classes, I didn't feel that it's recorded before because when you listen, this do this exercise now, I will make you in the groups. Apart from the fact that you can talk to the people, all exercises you can do like you are on the live session.
Yeah.
So teaching online teaching at University of Law, it's in my opinion, very, very, very good. At the beginning, there is like so many modules, information, so people get lost.
Yeah.
But after you learn how to use it, it's
Yeah.
it's a
It's
very easy
great,
way.
isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is great. And at the University of Law, as you know we use a specific type of learning model called the PEC model, which is prepare, engage, and consolidate. And there is a lot of guidance about that online before students get involved. And also, all students have an academic coach. They have an academic coach who's allocated to them. It used to be called a personal tutor, but they have a more academic role. So, if you have a student who's very new, perhaps they haven't, um, you know, had online teaching before and they're a little bit lost, they can reach out to their academic coach who can guide them. You can have a meeting, you can learn how to do it. There's no such thing as a silly question, and there is a lot of support there. So yeah, I think online provision can work really, really well for the right
After
student.
COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
My advice to the students, they have to just be open to communicate, even if there is not like face to face. They
Yeah,
have to ask us questions. Like you said, there is no silly questions, because I
yeah,
was like a shy one. Oh, I
of
don't know where to
course.
find. I was asking everyone around. But you have to, when you're studying online, you have to be really open to talk to people, try to find the way, because the
Absolutely.
everything is there. It's just sometimes maybe a little bit difficult to find it. I have a
Yeah,
question. So, for example,
sure.
to become a solicitor on the normal way, people have
Yeah,
to do LLB. And after
yeah,
this, for example, if they want to practice in medical law, do
yeah.
they have to do LLM, or they can just find a practice where they will be practicing
Yeah.
that area of
You
law?
to be honest, nowadays, it's quite interesting. You no longer definitely need to have an LLB.
Mhm.
There's something called an SQE, Solicitors Qualifying Examination. Now, the University of Law do give that training. So if there's anybody out there who's interested in that, I would refer you to look on the University of Law website. There's a lot of information out there. There's many ways of becoming a solicitor or even a barrister nowadays. So it's worth looking. It's it's tried to make the playing field fairer so that more people can join the profession if they want to. Now, if you have somebody like that who's very interested in going into personal injury or perhaps clinical negligence, you might want to look at working in a law firm that specializes in that area. It's quite easily to find which ones specialize in that area. There are a number of books and guides. Some of the big ones are like Capsticks, like DLO. DLA Piper, Panone, for example, up in the north. But there's many law firms who specialize in that. So, no, actually, you don't need an LLM to go into that area. However, if
It's
you want to make
practice.
your CV stand out,
Yeah. And also, we had the students who joined SQE, but they had to pay it by themselves. But
yeah,
when they will join LLM with SQE, they
yeah,
will get it covered by the student finance, which is a lot
yeah,
of money, because SQE is very expensive. So
complex.
always our students, when they see SQE, and then we say, well, you can do LLM, and then you will get the money from the government, the loan from the government.
Perfect.
This is the way they cover the tuition fees. And
Absolutely. Yeah,
at the
yeah.
end, can you tell me, because I heard from some people that before you start earning really good money as a solicitor is a long way. Is that true?
It depends. It depends. Some people qualify into the magic circle firms in the city in London. They tend to earn very well indeed right from the word go. But the thing is, the number of jobs there and whether you're a person who wants to work in the city, it depends. And to be honest, is money the most important thing? It can be a very important thing indeed. But many firms, like the firm I qualified into, which was in Swindon, in Wiltshire, the money was fine. It was good enough. It wasn't the best, but it certainly wasn't the worst either. And there were opportunities to advance. And this is where showing you're interested, getting some more expertise, things like getting a master's qualification under your belt, it can all help in that respect as well. So it depends where you're working.
Okay.
Some lawyers get relatively modest salaries, particularly those that are working in certain specialist areas. So it all depends, but money is not necessarily the driving factor for all lawyers. Because there's a lot of job satisfaction and, giving
Work,
back to society as well.
yeah, the work is very like prestigious, and when you say I'm a lawyer, I have worked.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very like respectful.
Yes, yes, very much so.
Even when I'm saying to my employees that, oh, I finished LLB, I finished the law degree. Oh, okay, okay, okay. So they are always like,
Yeah, yeah,
you have to be
absolutely.
careful with the words they use in. Okay, and do you have any like favorite model between in the LLMs in medical law, for example?
Do. My favorite area is end of life decision making.
Oh my gosh.
It's so well, it sounds quite depressing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's so interesting. It's so fascinating. And dare I say, we're all gonna die. We're all going to have situations where our loved one, our friends die. These are these issues. But the sort of academic considerations are really, really fascinating. And especially when you start to look at other jurisdictions, you start looking at what's happening in other countries and you compare our situation as well. So to my mind, that's fantastic. But mental capacity is also profoundly interesting as well.
So ending the life decision, do you teach also, for example, about abortion as well?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Yes, that's a whole unit that we look at, abortion. And once again, that's a really, really controversial area. You look at some countries in Europe, like Poland, for example, and you look at some regimes like in Spain, and you compare the two. In Poland, for example, there's a much more restricted access to abortion. And when you look more widely about how that can impact upon the rights and the livelihoods of women in particular, it can be profound. There are certain reasons why that's the way it is. And then you look at places like the Scandinavian countries where there is a sort of right to an abortion for a woman before a certain gestational age. For example, if a woman is before about 18 weeks of pregnancy, there is a right to have an abortion. In Britain, it's different. There's no right to an abortion. You
Okay.
have to go to a doctor, and a doctor has to agree. So it's sort of more limited in a way. Many people don't realize that. They think that it's free access, and it's not. But it's actually controlled by the medical profession, in actual fact, which compares with it's quite different to some other jurisdictions. But it's a fascinating area. And then
Yeah.
you have to look at the rights of that unborn child, the fetus. What rights does that fetus have, prior to birth? It engages with things like human rights. For example, human rights, the right to life, only starts when a child has been born, not before.
Okay.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
Poland, we had a situation a few months ago when the lady had some miscarriage, I think, and they didn't remove the baby for the few weeks,
yeah,
and she passed away because of the infection.
yeah.
So this is a really
Yes,
deep
that's right.
area.
It's a
Yeah.
really deep area, and particularly, for example, in Ireland, which is where I think that particular case came from. It's the access to abortion is very limited, mainly because of religion and aspects like this. But it can cause real tensions, like in the situation that you describe. So it's a really, really serious issue. This is,
So
but
how
yeah,
the student,
fascinating.
it's exciting, yeah. And so how student by studying this area of law can, I don't know, for example, help people or get the job. What kind of professions do you regulate in exactly this, for example, abortion law in each and every country?
Yeah, well, It depends. Some people might want to go into policy making. If there's areas of law reform, fundamentally there might be areas where lawyers in particular might want to get involved in that area. Um, there's areas like in if you have health professionals who are advising women, it's often useful to know about these areas where law interfaces with clinical practice, for example. So it can be useful to have this wider knowledge. We have some people who study topics like the LLM in medical law and ethics who don't have a legal background, they don't have a healthcare professional background. They are just really interested in this really dynamic area because you pick up any newspaper on any day of the year and there'll be something controversial, something about medical law and ethics that impact all of our lives potentially. Recently, there's been the issue about transsexuals and children and the extent about decision making in this area. These are profoundly important areas that are facing society. So it's not just people that are looking for a job, it's also people that want to think more broadly about these hugely controversial issues that affect us as people, and as society.
So what is happening, like by law, if the woman is pregnant and she doesn't want to have a child, and her husband is saying, "I want to have that child." So is there a legal way to sort this issue?
Well, in terms of the law in this area, in this jurisdiction, at least in England and Wales, is absolutely clear cut. It's the woman's decision. The man, even if he's been married to the woman for maybe 20 years, and at the end of the day, if his wife gives birth, he will be responsible financially for, contributing to the upkeep of that child. But he has no rights over that woman's body, no rights to stop her from having an abortion if she decides, and if medical professionals support her decision, they have no rights to interfere with that decision at all. And the reason for that is quite it's quite interesting. You've only got to think to yourself for 1 minute, what if that man did have a right over his wife's or his girlfriend's body? What would that tell you about women's autonomy, women's right to choose? We'd be back in the dark ages. But you can understand from a man's perspective, you know, it's biologically that child, his heart 50% his, but he's got no right.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
you can understand, how they would feel quite hard done to as well. But you've only got to think about the implications if he did have a right. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Guys, I hope with this little chat we just make you feel that law is very, very interesting area, and you will join one of our LLM law degrees. Thank you so much for your time. I can talk with you for hours, I guess. We have to usually
It,
sit our
it's
podcast until 30 minutes.
it's a pleasure, and it was so lovely to meet you. I
Thank
really enjoyed this chat, and thanks very much. Thank you.
you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Take care.